From one F1 driver having a 15-year-old girlfriend to another who was accused of sexual harassment, these are 7 F1 drivers that committed crimes. Let's go back a few decades when health and safety wasn't really a thing. Many people had to sadly lose their lives before safety became an important issue in the sport. And one turning point was an incident that involved Jim Clark. It killed Wolfgang von Trips and several spectators in the Italian Grand Prix in 1961. It wasn't really something intentional, but with multiple deaths involved, someone had to be blamed, and in this case, it was Jim Clark. While racing at the Monza track, Jim's right front wheel touched Wolfgang's rear wheel, which sent the latter's car springing into the air and crash landing on the side barriers. With the impact, Wolfgang, who wasn't much of a seatbelt enthusiast, was thrown out of the car, and a total of 15 spectators were killed. With no one else to blame, the Italian police charged Jim Clark with manslaughter for the incident. But years after, a spade was called a spade, and it was then ruled out as accidental contact. Ironically enough, years after that defining moment, Clark would also soon be on the death note through another racing accident in 1968 for Formula 2 in West Germany. Weird coincidence, right? Just because you are the F1's greatest of all time, it doesn't mean you are exempt from the rules. It turns out, being the GOAT doesn't necessarily mean you always play by the rules. Something Michael Schumacher knows all too well. In the 1997 European Grand Prix in Spain, Schuey on the Ferrari was close to having the championship title snatched by Jacques Villeneuve, who was driving for Williams Renault. Michael was only leading the standings by 1 point over Villeneuve, so we can only imagine his desperation. Michael decided to execute Order 66.
Execute Order 66.
And refused to concede when Jacques tried overtaking him, and maybe, just maybe, flinched and steered a little too close to try and ram the faster driver off the tracks. However, the universe had other plans, and he instead sent himself off the tracks. Talk about getting that Uno reverse card, right? By then, the damage was too much for Michael's car, and he was forced to retire entirely from the race. And while initially it had been ruled out as a racing incident, Schumi was called in for a disciplinary hearing by the FIA, and it was later on announced that he would be disqualified from the 1997 World Drivers' Championship. With that being said, Schumi's worst nightmares came to life as Villeneuve went on to claim the F1 World Drivers' Championship. Speaking of championships, how far do you think F1 drivers would go to win? Could you imagine sacrificing your teammate just to be victorious? Well, Fernando Alonso certainly can imagine, and Nelson Piquet Jr. was very willing to make the sacrifice play at the time. In one of the most controversial sporting scandals of all time, dubbed as Crashgate, it seems as though Renault said there's no I in team, and teammates should help each other out, or at least Nelson should help Fernando out. At the 14th lap of the Singapore Grand Prix in 2008, Nelson deliberately crashed into the circuit wall at turn 17, leading to the deployment of the safety car. Fernando had already boxed earlier and was then promoted to race leader under safety car conditions, resulting in him eventually winning the race. Now, no one was suspicious at the time. After all, it was a simple mistake, right, Nelson? Well, after Renault dropped him during the 2009 Hungarian Grand Prix, all hell broke loose, and Nelson was ready to have a pseudo sit-down interview with Oprah or something. He claimed the team had ordered him to crash on purpose to help Fernando take the lead, and in true FIA fashion, they then decided to investigate the matter. It turns out Nelson was right. There weren't any penalties for Fernando himself, but the Renault F1 team were then charged for conspiracy. On September 21, 2008, the Renault F1 team was handed a disqualification from Formula 1, which was then suspended. The team managing director, Flavio Briatore, was banned from all F1 events indefinitely, while Simon's executive director received a 5-year ban. Well, teamwork does make the dream work, unless Nelson's your teammate, I guess. We've all heard of Mad Max on the F1 grid these days. I mean, who hasn't? But have you guys ever heard of Mad Yost? Huh? I think it's a good time to cue the laugh track, Steven. It seems as though Max Verstappen's dad, Yost, who is also a former F1 driver, has got some real issues. anger issues. Yost gives a whole new definition to the phrase road rage, as there have been reports that he struck his former girlfriend with a car in 2012. She had to be taken by ambulance to the hospital with heavy bruises and abrasions on her body. He was then charged with an attempted murder, but it was subsequently withdrawn for unknown reasons. Was it real, or was it just an accusation? Well, it turns out that wasn't the only time that a case like this has happened with the F1 dad, as he's already been previously found guilty of assaulting and threatening his ex-partners, along with violating multiple restraining orders. Back in 1998, Yost had an assault case with his father for fracturing a man's skull on a karting track. Yep, road rage, literal road rage. The biggest and most scandalous thing a public figure could be doing right now is associating themselves with the Nazis. Yeah, you heard that right. And former F1 boss and racing driver Max Mosley has had that unwanted controversy tied to his belt. In 2008, there were reports and videos of Mr. Mosley, who was then the president of FIA, showing him in a very participative mood, with 5 engaging in a I can't believe I'm saying this, and that this is a thing, but in a themed sadomasochistic in a London dungeon. What? Now, I know that is a lot of information to take in at once, but you know, he never really denied the allegations. In the video, which we cannot show, he was seen lashing 2 women wearing prisoners' uniforms while counting and crying out that the women still needed more punishment in German. And, well, it also doesn't help that his parents were real Nazis back in the day. But he did refute the supposed Nazi motive of the event after Jewish groups and FIA-affiliated organizations called him out for the unethical behavior. Even to this day, Max Mosley remains one of the iconic names in F1 history. So maybe he never really had it all that embarrassing. Speaking of embarrassing, we've got one of the most controversial F1 drivers of all time on our list here. And believe it or not, we've got Nikita Mazepin in the house. Well, when our boy Nikita isn't spinning on the tracks, he's hanging out with his rich Russian oligarch friends. And true to the billionaire playboy image that he can't seem to get rid of, the dude has been a very controversial F1 driver. Even when him joining Haas were still just rumors. But there's a reason why Nikita is the least favorite driver on the grid. It's not because of his billionaire daddy that's keeping Haas afloat. After all, people love Lance Stroll, but it's because of a prior sexual harassment case that surfaced when he was just about to enter F1. In the since-deleted video that he posted on his official Instagram account, which obviously we cannot show, a woman seemed to have been drunk in the backseat of the car, wherein she was groped on her chest area by someone from the passenger seat. She then responded with an obscene gesture, signaling it was uninvited. While there weren't any formal charges pressed against Nikita, the Haas F1 team has had to do a bunch of damage control for their new sponsor. He said he's sorry for the video, but who knows what's next for this guy? He's certainly got a lot of potential in him, if not for a serious F1 meme career. But the controversy could be too much, even for him. Speaking of controversy, let's talk about Ayrton Senna. Let's go back to 1985, when he started dating an underage girl. The girl in question was named Adrienne Yaman, the daughter of an entrepreneur from Sao Paulo, Brazil. They started seeing each other right after his marriage with Lilian Vasconcelos ended. This was probably the worst kind of rebound relationship Senna could have picked. The rising F1 driver was 25 at the time, with Adrienne being only 15 years old. Yeah, you heard that right. She was only 15. When we say go for a gap, we didn't mean a 10-year age gap with a younger girl. To make it even more disturbing, whenever the two would go out on dates, they would have to be accompanied by the girl's mother. Wouldn't you be uncomfortable going out with someone who had to be accompanied by their parents? It's even worse that the mother was okay with this. Now, legally speaking, the age of consent in Brazil at the time was 14 years old. Ayrton was technically not breaking the law, but you know, looking back, it's definitely creepy. Eventually, the couple got engaged, but luckily, it was later broken off by Ayrton in 1988. Maybe he finally came to his senses. Now, some of these crimes are pretty shocking if you ask me, but not as shocking as the celebrities that some of these F1 drivers have dated. You don't want to miss this one. Click the video on the screen now.